Police body camera footage, DNA evidence, x-rays, and an autopsy report, all part of testimony today in the murder trial of William Zelenski in Waupaca County. Zelenski facing a first-degree intentional homicide charge for the death of 18-year-old Riley Mananti.
According to court documents, Zelenski accused Mananti of taking $17,000 worth of exotic reptiles that he owned and stealing weapons from Zelenski's car. Samantha Cavalli joins us live from Waupaca with this first alert update on the trial. Samantha.
Yeah, Cammie, tonight and today we heard from the forensic medical examiner regarding the angle at which the gun was shot at, plus a toxicology report that when Riley died, he had meth and marijuana in his system. Now, we also heard from the first responding officer on the scene for the incident that occurred on October 19th, 2020. Now, Waupaca Police Department officer Paul Schlebisky was dispatched to a weapons call on Van Street that night. When he arrived, he wanted to make sure that the scene was secure and asked who the shooter was. Zelenski then told Officer Schlebisky that he shot Riley in self-defense. The officer then attended to Riley, who was not responding. Officer Schlebisky said that neither Zelenski nor his girlfriend Tiffany Powell attempted any kind of life-saving measures on Riley, but the officer tried to attempt life-saving measures on his own by trying to stop the bleeding. Officer Schlebisky said this was just his second shift by himself towards the end of his training, as he only started with the police department 2 months prior to the incident.
Isn't it true that you didn't secure the scene as you should have, but you instead diverted your attention to Riley?
That's correct. There were things I would have done differently if I had the knowledge that I have now, such as detaining Bill right away before administering aid instead of just commanding Bill to the curb.
And coming up later tonight at 6, we'll see the body camera footage of when the defendant, William Zelenski, found out that Riley had died. See his reaction in court to that video. Reporting live in Waupaca, Samantha Cavalli, Action 2 News.